If this investigation finds proof of illegal activity on either side to such a level that it could have changed the outcome of the election, then I would wholeheartedly support a new election to ensure all voters have confidence in the results. As we move toward resolution, I look forward to participating in a transparent, factual, and fair process.
The big question in North Carolina's 9th congressional district is whether a brand new election will take place due to the possibility of election fraud. Republican Mark Harris leads Democrat Dan McCready by just 905 votes. But the State Board of Elections has refused to certify the results and is instead calling for a public hearing by December 21st to investigate claims of fraud and irregularities related to absentee by mail ballots. The person at the heart of the allegations, political operative Leslie McCrae Dowless, has been named as a person of interest by the election board. He allegedly oversaw workers who collected absentee ballots from voters in Bladen County. Joining me now, Dan McCready, the Democratic candidate for Congress in North Carolina's 9th congressional district, who withdrew his concession to Republican Mark Harris. Mr. McCready, thank you very much for being on the show.
Great to be on with you this morning.
So let me get your reaction to something that Dallas Woodhouse had to say in response to a story in my paper, The Washington Post. He said this on All In with Chris Hayes back on Thursday.
We often get complaints about people who don't like what happened in their primary races, and perhaps we should have paid a little more attention. I'll plead guilty to that. But here's what I would say. The only thing we could have done is call state and federal investigators and the Board of Elections, which already knew and have been a part of this for, have been investigating this for a decade and haven't got their hands around it. That's all we could have done. And quite frankly, I looked at the overall vote numbers in Bladen County, and I saw that Mr. Harris won. I didn't look at the absentee numbers.
So, Dan, your reaction to Dallas?
Well, we heard during the election rumors of bad activity. Bladen County is a very small county. These are small towns. People know who the shady characters are. What is amazing here is that my opponent, Mark Harris, went out and hired this known criminal, McCrae Dowless, who was under investigation for absentee ballot fraud to run his absentee ballot program amidst all of these allegations.
Let's play to your point about how Mr. Dowless was a known criminal. Here is Robert Pittenger, who lost to Harris in the primary, and says he had heard about irregularities. Let's take a listen to this.
Have you ever heard of voter irregularities in the district? Is this something that's news to you?
It's been out there. We were fully aware of it. There's some pretty unsavory people out, particularly in Bladen County, and I didn't have anything to do with them. Let me just leave it at that.
It makes me wonder, when you got into this race, how aware were you and how prepared were you for the type of activity that we're now talking about?
I never expected what we're seeing now. That I just never would have expected this last week. I mean, I was at Disney World a couple weeks ago with my 4 little kids and my wife Laura. We had thought this election was over. We've been then watched over the last week, not just day by day, but literally hour by hour, as more evidence, more affidavits involving actual fraud and illegal activity have come to light. And all roads lead to the top of my opponent, Mark Harris's campaign, yet he has refused to even answer a single question about his activities bankrolling this criminal.
Let's take a listen to a person who thought they were voting by absentee. Take a listen to this.
A young lady came to the door. She knocked on the door, asked could she get the absentee ballot. I told her, sure. I had broke the seal in front of her to show it wasn't never open. I broke it in front of her. I filled out 2 boxes. She said she would fill the rest out, that it wasn't important. I signed it, gave it to her. It was not sealed. She said she would seal it and come back to me and show me that it was sealed. I never got a show bag from her.
And so you found out, though, that your absentee ballot was never turned in?
Yes, the investigators came. He came and he showed me that my name was on the list, but my absentee ballot did not come up in the system.
Dan, as a person who's run for office, you asked for the public's trust to send you to Washington to find out and to hear not just from that young lady, because there have been interviews all over the place with people who thought they had voted and their votes did not count. What is your message to the people of the 9th District of North Carolina in the middle of all this?
Well, this really is not about me. It's not even about Mark Harris. This is much bigger than one single election. This is about people whose voices were taken from them, people whose voices were silenced. You know, your vote is your voice in our democracy. I started out serving in the Marine Corps overseas. I understand what it means to fight for our country. I understand what it means to fight for our democracy. I just never imagined that we would have our democracy under attack right here in North Carolina. And furthermore, if you think about it, you know, there has been such a long struggle for voting rights in this country. One of the most special days on my campaign was having the opportunity to campaign with Congressman John Lewis, who is an American hero and a civil rights leader. And, you know, come to find out, just down the road from where we are campaigning together, there are still people today who are having their votes and their voices taken from them.
Have you heard from Mark Harris since the day you called to concede, before you withdrew your concession?
I have not. Mark Harris, since this whole thing has started, has read one statement written by his lawyers, has refused to answer a single question about what he knew and when. And people are very upset about that. You know, people are demanding that Mark Harris come clean, stop hiding behind his lawyers, and actually tell the people what he knew and why he hired a known criminal to run his absentee ballot program.
Dan McCready, thank you very much for being on the program. Dan McCready, running in North Carolina's 9th